I'm Elizabeth Payne, best known as Libbie Payne. I was an Ogontz camper in Lyman, New Hampshire. I came to camp from Trumansburg, New York. Started as a camper in 1964, continued as a camper through 1965, became a counselor in training in 1966, a full-fledged counselor in 67 through 70, and in 1971, at the ripe old age of 19, I was the assistant director of Ogontz Camp. My parents decided it was time for me to have a more formalized summer experience, and through friends, I got to know about Ogontz, and I went because Susan, who was a playmate of mine, had gone, and she wasn't enjoying it terribly after the first year. So the idea was, we'll send Libbie to camp with Susan. Susan wore pinafore dresses most of the time. You had to pay me to get into a dress as a young kid. I was too busy. I needed to be outside and running around. And she lived on a farm, and they had all these wonderful animals, and I would come be invited down to play with her, and she wouldn't go in the barn, which is where I wanted to be. So we had some interesting, episodes over that. But I mean, Susan cried when she was here. I mean, she would call her mother every day, and and it's like, what? We aren't even supposed to use the telephone. And she would go into the main office and use the telephone and reverse the charges. And unfortunately, at one point, I discovered that the PA system box was right next to the telephone that she was using. And so she'd be on the phone crying, and I hate camp, and this is terrible, and the bugs are awful. And I would go in, and I would walk by the box and flip on the PA system. And all over camp, you would hear, I really don't like camp. Can I go home now? And you'd hear people laughing all over camp. And then just as quietly as I turned it on, I walked by and turned it off. She never figured out what the heck was going on. So the bottom line was, she'd never returned, and I have returned now for decades.